Dear grade 10 learners, welcome back. Before the ad break, I introduced you, or I reminded you rather, to what you did in grade 9 when you were given the cost, which is always 100%, and then you have the markup, which depends on what you're given in the question, and you would then calculate the selling price. But I want us now to do this practically so. So I want you to grab your calculator, get your pen or your pencil, get somewhere else to write as well. Then we're going to start some calculations. What you see in front of you reads, Neutral stores mark up all their stock at 25%. So this is my markup percentage, 25%. If they buy stock for 800, this is very important, okay? If they buy stock for 800 and apply the markup of 25%, then the selling price will be. They require us to calculate what? The selling price. This is what they require us. Earlier on, I told you that the cost is 100. It will be 100%. The one that changes is what? The markup. In this particular question, they gave us 25%. Therefore, if I bring my markup, which is 25%, I will add these two now. I'll add my cost price and my markup. It will give me my selling price. Therefore, my selling price becomes 125. Remember again, what do they want us to calculate? The selling price. So as I promised you earlier on that I'm going to introduce you to a very interesting method called the UK method. Let's see, what does the UK method say? The UK method says what you want over what you have, multiply that by what you have will give you what you want. All right, I'm going to break it further again. In accounting, you will always be required to calculate something. Profit, sales, cost. You have to know what is it that you want. In this particular case, what do we want? We want the selling price. So if you come again here, you'll find that your selling price is what? 125%. So already you know what it is that you want. You want 125. You see it over here. I want 125. So what you want is always on top. On top. You can see this one is on top. What you want is always on top. So what I want over what I have. What is it that I have? What I am given here is that we bought stock of 800. This is the cost. So if that is the cost, remember what I told you earlier on, cost is always 100%. That means my 100% is equal then to the 800. It is equal to the 800. That means I have two things now. I have my 100%, which is equal to 800 rands. So my want must be one value, but my have must be how many? Two values. So what I want is 125, but what I have is 100, what you see here. Then I multiply that now with the have, but in rand value. How much is my have in rand value? You can see, you remember it. There it is, 800. So I multiply that by 800. It will give me what I want in rand value, which then is 1,000. That becomes the selling price. Yes, you're saying, Mr. Simbi, this is simple. Yes, indeed, it is simple. This is what you did in grade 9. But now we've added something to it. The UK method is what we have just added to it. I'm quickly going to move now to the new words that you're going to find in today's class. I'm going to talk about informal accounting. I'm going to speak as well on formal accounting. I'm going to speak on VAT vendor, the UK method, I've already alluded to it. Cost price, now it rings in your mind. Markup, selling price. At the end of the lesson, I'm going to teach you how to calculate money received and money that has been paid. Now, my dear learners, as I'm continuing now, I'm going to touch on what we call formal businesses and informal businesses. Let me start off with a formal business. What comes to mind when you think formal business? You think of the shops that you see when you go to the mall. Yes, that is correct. As you can see here in the picture, a formal business is a business that is registered with an authority, like SARS. Thank you. And it must have an operating license. It must be a registered VAT vendor. That means it can collect VAT as well as pay VAT. And it has to have a proper set of books as well as a fixed place of business. This then is a bit different from an informal business. How do we know? An informal business is not registered with any authority. It also does not have an operating license. And it is not registered as a VAT vendor. Now, you would find that it also does not have a proper set of books or even a fixed place of business. This then becomes my informal business. All right, so already you can tell now if you look at a business whether it is a formal or an informal business. But then I would want to know, why would one start an informal business? Why would you start an informal business? I'm going to move then to explaining the reasons behind starting an informal business. One of the first reasons which I would mention, or that would come to mind, is the inability to get employment. After you have qualified and you look for employment, you can't get it. The best way is to create one now. So you start an informal business. And some need to work flexible hours, such as mothers with small children. So they need to be available. So they would rather work from home. Some can do their baking, some can do their sewing from home. This then brings to the creation of informal businesses. And some are attempting to raise money to start a formal business. If you hear stories of people that have made it big in the business world, they'll tell you, I started my business in my garage. That means they started as an informal business until they've raised enough capital to register their business formally. And some, they would start an informal business because they've identified an opportunity in the market. The moment they see the opportunity in the market, they can't wait to lose it, so they would rather start it on a smaller scale, hoping that they would make it bigger in the future. All right, but then what types of businesses would fall into the informal business? All right, when you look at a business, which types of businesses would fall under the informal businesses? You would then find that that is what I'm going to start with now, the types of informal businesses. All right, there are indeed many types of informal businesses, and I'm just going to mention a few examples. And already as I'm speaking of them, I want you to remember the businesses that you see in your area. Okay, when you're on your way to school, when you look at these businesses, you can see this is the business that Mr. Simbi was speaking about, the type of an informal business. The first one that I would mention is street vendors, selling vegetables, sweets, and chips. Some of these even come to your school gate after school. They'll be selling ice cream. Some of them will be selling sweets. These are what we call informal businesses. Flea markets over the weekend. Some of you go to flea markets. Remember, these are not registered, so they will be your informal businesses. Some of them are working from home. All right? I've seen so many people who cook their food from home and then they go on to sell it and delivering it to some companies. Those are also your informal businesses. And in your area, I'm quite sure that you would find a saloon even in your street on the corner. There's a guy who's cutting people's hair. That is an informal business. My dear learners, we're going to go again for another ad break, and after that, I'm going to continue with today's lesson.